Peace, peace, peace. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Give honor to the source of the ancestors, the Most High. You know, whatever you subscribe to, give gratitude to the ancestors known and unknown. You know, I'm driving, getting clarity. And I really don't know who this is for, but I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people. To where I'm going to speak on like what in depth, what karmic lessons can look like. I know you heard me use the phrase taking back your power. Let's say like in this lifetime for a lot of us, a lot of you, and you know, wherever you are on your journey, whether it's your healing journey, whatever it is, that is when you are in a space of taking back your power and doing things to where you're trying to exercise a different version of yourself and it's calling for you. When you're going through these different phases and different parts of your life, it's going to cause so much of what's unfamiliar. And it's funny, as I'm driving by a place and it says grace, you're going to have a lot of grace for yourself. Reason being is because you're going to really find out things you didn't know. Then you're going to be uncomfortable with the things that you wish you should have known. Because it's almost like a child who is learning through life and so forth. And sometimes we can be our worst critic, you know, or we can want to beat ourselves down over certain decisions that we made. But that's where grace comes in. And also, again, if I had to highlight anything right now that I'm personally going through, in my own life, one of the biggest things I realized that has to be highlighted for myself is when I say taking back your power, that's also referencing the importance of your personal power, taking back your personal power. And that will highlight a lot of things that, I can go that way. That will bring up a lot of things to where, let's say some of you that have been in, let's say, whether it's something financially abusive, emotionally, mentally, and so forth, whether that's through childhood up until adulthood. Now, let's say with financial abuse, and if you don't know, you can research it, because financial abuse can be in a way of like, I don't know all the details, but I know some, where you could grew up with a family member or relative or a guardian parent or whatever, or even in a relationship where someone either like withholds some type of support from your progression in life. And that can be towards your endeavors, that can be towards your dreams, that can be towards whatever your purpose is, and so forth. And again, this is a thing that can be highlighted that most people are probably unaware systematically too. Financial abuse, where again, things where people who don't see the financial support or receive the resources that other people would have, and so forth. And so again, that is can be a form of like financial abuse. Even sometimes where people end up going through things where they are subjected to being blackmailed and, you know, stuff like that. Again, I can go in so many details of what it actually, you know, represents, or the root of it. But I'm gonna stay on track with it right now. Other than that, again, let's say whether you were in something emotionally abusive or physically, your personal power is something that, again, is within you. When you're trying to be a cycle breaker or break generational patterns and so forth, a lot of people don't have the courage. And a lot of people who know, let's say, if you're dealing or have dealt with some type of abuse or some type of, sometimes we can get into things where you, like, let's say you were abandoned young, and then you don't know the difference between a healthy connection, connection, rather than what's perceived to be a healthy connection, but more so unhealthy attachment. And so how that can look in relationships personally, again, if you never saw anything healthy, and you can go through relationships or patterns of being with people who do not reciprocate or have met themselves to the depths of what it truly is to show up not only healthy for themselves but for you. So this will reflect in the relationship. This will be mirrored back in the marriage. This will be mirrored back in a partnership, businessship, whatever. And the thing about all of this is to bring awareness to, I feel like that camera is so close. It's to bring awareness to the fact of your either learned behavior pattern or also the other person's learned behavior pattern, because it doesn't matter how loud, it doesn't matter how quiet, for those who know that have matured at this place of like emotional intelligence, or even those who are some of you that are going to go through this process of, again, if you had an emotionally unavailable guardian, typically you're going to attract or be in connections with people who are emotionally immature. And one of the most challenging things when you're taking back your personal power is sometimes, and I'm telling you what I've dealt with personally, I not only feel like I can outgrow something, I feel like what happens is, due to what is familiar, I've stayed in, I keep looking at my hands, I know I put shea butter on my finger, but I would stay in things much longer than I need to, overstay. And that's how I'm telling you from experience how it can look for a lot of you, especially growing up in a society where your childhood woundings are preyed upon, and this keeps you from developing. And again, growing up in environments, whether you grew up in a two-parent home or guardian home or not, there's still things people dealt with and have dealt with personally that still reflects the fact of them really, again, they abuse their power. And really, if they knew the importance of personal power, and or they, how could I say this? Yeah, their form of hold on one second. Their form of their personal power, they don't realize that they've created a mass, or have masked themselves through learned behavior patterns from childhood development, how to implement this personal power in an abusive way. So that's why you can have interactions with people who can come off as implementing this false empowerment. And the reason I say false, again, because if it doesn't honor the feminine archetype, then in a way you are implementing a false sense of power, which you abuse or neglect or abandon in the parts of yourself that, let's say, an emotional aspect. So then you get into a relationship with a person who's emotionally abusive, who withhold or does the silent treatment, or does things to make sure that your emotions aren't a priority, or they may display something in, display behaviors that their emotions are more important than yours. They're more valuable than yours. And then now here you are fighting to have more depth with this person. In reality, they've never met themselves that deep. They don't know the importance of emotional maturity, or they never grew up in anything that has challenged them. And when you're there, sometimes it can reflect the fact of how when you bring up things regarding your emotions or the value of them or how they're valuable, a lot of us have again dealt with people who have had learned behavior patterns where they don't know how to hold space, and no one had held space for their emotions. So one of the biggest things for me in like confidently speaking up is that I even had to express to someone like how they don't know the importance of conflict resolution. And there's a healthier way where we're talking about there's a difference between combativeness and confrontation. When you're talking about conflict resolution, we're trying to find a resolution to whatever is problematic. You're not always going to see eye to eye, because again, if you don't have a society or people foundation that have grew up in environments where they have had a guardian or someone who prioritized their emotions and, you know, personally, and then the emotions of their children. When you have foundations, again, who don't emphasize with the children or the self first, then you will create or have the behavior you're seeing displayed now, mental health being a highlight, because you're seeing the fact of what is being reversed at a time what it felt was irreversible, is people taking back their personal power. Going no contact or removing yourself from certain relationships that no longer resonate is a form of taking back your personal power. Again, that can seem very very detrimental or threatening to people who don't know what it is to stand in their own authority, to be self-sufficient. And I'm telling you personally, where again, through learned behavior patterns, through my own woundedness, through my own inability to see my own self, my own actions and so forth, it led me down a path of realizing that abusing my power was demonstrating the wounded masculinity through my actions of trying to control, trying to unconsciously manipulating, you know, going into things knowing that I just wanted, let's say at that time when I was younger, sex, when I know I didn't want nothing longevity. And again, I know a lot of women can relate to this, because again, when you have a society with a distorted patriarchal, and I tell y'all about this is because it's to show you what you unconsciously have been enabling, and then now you're more aware, and in this, you take back your personal power when you go celibate or you go abstinence or whatever you want to see, or you restrain or walk away from a relationship that at a point in time you didn't have people who supported you through it to walk away. And it can be scary. It can be very scary, because some of those starting over could be you and just your children, or just you and whomever else that you felt was supportive in that moment. And that's scary, because again, you have to rebuild upon a whole new foundation. And that's why the feminine archetype is so important, because at a point in time when you did not know how to take back your personal power, you were just going with the flow. That's what society, that's what has happened through generations, where you have seen people repeat certain patterns where they just going with the flow of thing in marriage, in society, in business and so forth, until there's this unexpected, abrupt, you know, catastrophic change or divine intervention. I like to say, whether it's a car accident, something dealing with health, or, you know, all these different things, because when I address mental health, it's health in its entirety, to where you're talking about emotional, mental, and so forth. So taking back your personal power has a lot to do with the fact of, you know, if it's ancestrally, whether your mother, great-grandmother was silenced because of speaking up on her truth of being a herbalist, a spiritualist, a medicine woman, a root worker, you know, things that connect to anything that recovers that personal authority. And again, that's going to be threatening to the very men who don't know how to connect that deep, or who don't even have a connection to their spirituality or to their emotional well-being, their emotional body, and so forth. That's going to be threatening to a society, to a corporation, to businesses who don't uphold the same core standards, core values. Because that's what taking back your personal power is that you're not tolerating the bullshit anymore. You're not going to tolerate being disrespected. You're not going to tolerate it being devalued, dehumanized. And that happens on a personal level. Then it starts to ripple to your family, if you have one, or whomever is your tribe or so forth. Then it starts to play out and ripple like a water. Again, the feminine archetype is like that of water, that little droplet that has that wave that has an effect on everyone and everything around it. And this is where you see the beauty in being the villain, because you start to recognize everyone who wants to come in and portray this hero aspect, this misconception of it, because they really don't know what it is to have and stand in their personal power, because they want to save the day. And then saving the day has a lot to do with their own image, protecting their image. And when you see what's happening to where you have a collective of people, especially, let's say, indigenous people who are just trying to exercise taking back their personal power individually. When people are going to learn about their ancestral things that were hidden. Again, exposure. All these things are exposing so people can take back their personal power, so they can rebuild structures. Again, I'm telling you from personal experience, that's scary as fuck. That's unheard of for some people. It's very unheard of. And that's threatening. Notice how I'm telling from personal experience where I've seen people, again, whether it's financial abuse, I had to get clarity of this shit. I'm like, oh my gosh. If it was up to a lot of people, I'm talking about women and connections I was in, mother, if it was up to them, how I could give you an example is that taking back my power has a lot to do with my personal power is addressing to the woman that, again, who gave birth to me, but letting her know that you will no longer keep using my information. And, you know, because that's something that reflects me. That's something personal. This reflects my image, because if you're using something and then it's given to this corporation or something and it's making it seem like I'm giving this willingly and I didn't, then that's an abuse of your power. So in taking back my power, my personal power, I bring justice to that shit. I balance it out. No, you're not going to do this. This was going to happen, and I'm letting you know next time. This is not a threat. This is letting you know that I'm not tolerating your shit anymore. There's no difference in personal relationships that you have with people, whether relationships with other people. When you start to take back your power personally, when you start to no longer silence that little boy and girl within you, that shit will bring other things out of people. It will bring up their deepest insecurities. It will bring up the fact that they're starting to lose their control because they don't know how to honor the feminine. They start to lose their control over the environment, over, you know, let's say someone you live in a house with or something. They start to realize they're losing the control. They're loosening their grip. Because then when you start to realize, they start to hold on even tighter. I wish I could see the, you know, steering wheel. Like they hold it on even tighter. They want to hold on even tighter. They start coming out with, oh, I'll change, I'll do this, and I really want this. And, you know, that's what becomes this desperation of this, the attachment starts to reveal itself. The unhealthy attachment. Because connection, genuine connection, will push you, will encourage you, will support you into whatever it is that you're doing, your purpose. And the reason why I say connection is different than attachment is because beyond you knowing that you walk into your destiny, someone who genuinely supports you walking into your destiny will know that it's okay for you to do that without you needing their permission. 1 second. Without you needing their permission. Because raw and real, when it comes to raw and real femininity, it doesn't need permission. And that's the thing about the personal power of the rise of the divine feminine and also the masculine, but the rise of the feminine that was silenced, the parts of us that were silenced, that would try to be controlled and manipulated, that were deceived. I don't need your permission to be me. I don't need your permission to fucking show up for me. See, that's the misconception and deception. That, again, once you start taking back your personal power, I didn't need your permission to love me, to honor me. I never needed your fucking permission. There's a higher power source. So, the most high, what? You never needed human or people's permission to be who you are. So when you start to look at how color and creed and all this other shit, who implemented that? Why do I need your permission to be indigenous or to be black or to be whatever it is? What the fuck? Who placed that on me? Since when does women need your permission how to have a child? When there's no force in this universe or anywhere that can keep a child from coming. No, the corruption in it that's exposing so that women can take back their personal power through, from powers that used to be, or the systems, the medical system and all that, the hospice and all that, hospitals and all that shit that try to project fear onto women so that they don't to project fear and plant seeds within their being, within their subconscious, so that they don't realize that before even the hospital came about and all that medical shit, your ancestors was already giving birth to children without any of this shit. So of course, they're gonna desperately try to cast illusion, project onto you that you're not able to do this. Who are you to do that? Opposition. Balance is being restored. That's why you see desperate attempts where, let's say you're in an abusive relationship, and that person will throw up, well, I've done this, you ain't nothing without me, yada, yada, yada. Who you gonna be without me? Yeah, motherfucker, of course you gonna say some shit like that, because it shows, again, when you look at a person that don't know how to emphasize or don't have empathy, that don't know how to connect, that, you know what that shows? And it's the same thing. Oh, not just relationships and abuse of power with that, also societally, also governmentally and so forth. Who are you going to be if you don't know your inner identity? That's why they threaten people with that shit. That's why it's a threat when you start to rise in your own power. They see you as a threat to their structures. Then now that more and more people are coming to enlightenment and becoming more aware, they start to realize their grip, they lost, they're losing control. And you will be able to see who's who. That's why I say in a personal relationship, with an interaction with someone, of course, homeboy or homegirl ain't gonna want you to take back your power. And if you're dealing with somebody who, again, let's say they could have had sexual traumas and they don't even aware, and they only use sex, they'll use that to try to keep you around. Some women will use that to keep you attached unhealthily, until they start displaying more behavior that you realize that your soul, that your spirit is not at peace with, because you've met yourself much deeper. I deserve more than this. I want more out of life. Fuck this shit. And once you get enough and you get tired, it'll start presenting itself. Those things will start presenting itself. There's always a way out. There's always. But what fear and the old world narrative that pushed the fear propaganda will have you believing in your mind the illusion of you're not able to do this. This is all you are deserving of. So again, on different levels, it will try to portray as, if you do this, then this is the consequences of your actions. Man, fuck that. I'm fearless. And with being fearless and being unapologetically myself, what consequences? I've experienced, especially as a darker man, as an indigenous man, what I've seen people I know go through. What's the consequences? Death? What is that to be afraid of? That's a transition. Someone threatening me, another person coming along threatening me with, oh my gosh, we're going to do this because you ain't, listen, when you align with your path, there ain't shit. Weapons may form, but they shall not prosper. There ain't nothing that can touch you when you are in truly alignment with what your purpose is. Because you realize that your purpose and your calling outweighs all of the lies, the propaganda, the accusations and so forth, all of that shit, all of that. And I'm a firm, knowing this, that in touching anointed or people who have a purpose or calling, there is consequences to that too, very much so. And that karma, that shit will boomerang and backfire so quickly. So again, as I continue through what I was saying, those people in relation, you ain't nothing without me. You know what that shows? It shows a lack of inner identity. That I told you, the rise of the feminine is going to expose those and people, myself included, and everybody else who don't have a emotional connection to themselves, emotional security, stability, and so forth. Because only someone who will come out or threaten someone with their stability, their home, their finances, or even blackmailing them, even someone who will come out shows the inability of stability within themselves. They don't have, because when someone say you're nothing without me, you won't have this and all like this, guess what? They're basically saying that they have lived off from you. They have siphoned from you. They have built their identity around you, and that's their way of their insecurity, saying you're nothing without me. Let me tell you something. I'm everything with or without your ass. And that's how some of you, once you realize your personal power includes that, you ain't gonna be concerned about how much money that man got. That's why I tell y'all have developed, this society has developed the false, not only the false empowerment or the false, false leadership and what it is to become successful, stable, to be somebody and all like that. Real being in tune has nothing to do with you trying to prove yourself to nobody. Because evolution in the flow of the feminine archetype is ever changing. That's why to love a woman is to love every version of her. It's the same way with a man. To my women, to love a man is to love every version of him. I'm not saying to tolerate the bullshit, but it's to have empathy. That don't mean you have to interact. I'm talking about to have empathy. You can have sympathy from a distance. You can have empathy from a distance. It's to emphasize, to know that, man, you know what? What society or learned behavior patterns, depending on where you are blocked at, will have you believing that's just that person. They're the way they are, as they are. And it's not even giving them room to grow. Just as your child would. Just as a little boy would. Now, I'm not saying don't believe people to show you who they are from the beginning. But that's what, again, with the red flags, and when you realize, you know what? I've had enough. And that's in I am enough. I am enough to outgrow this. I am enough to walk away from this with clarity, with dignity, with self-respect, with honor. Because in honoring the flow of femininity is to honor that which is ever changing. There is no identity when it comes to the feminine archetype. It's always flowing. It's always ever changing. The currents. There's so many different parts of the feminine that cannot be controlled. It's not even that about control. You cannot, it's not even, I can put into words. It cannot be tamed. Like you see snow, you can freeze it. Snow, look at how water goes through so many different phases, so many different things that it can become. How many shapes it can take when you put it in certain things. But still, at the core of it, it still is shapeless. That's the mysticism. That's the shape-shifting aspect of things. And when people who aren't aware of their inner power, that don't know about that, they abuse it. They try to control it. They try to box it. And so again, how that can be displayed on many levels has a lot to do with you're seeing why the distorted patriarchal has demonstrated through their wounded masculinity who not only they are, but they're also going through deep healing right now. All men's of cultures and creeds. And again, it's going to show you as things are going to expose, especially to my women and mothers, those of you that take back your personal power, you're going to realize in the rise of, things that you can no longer be silenced with, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in or being a part of things that have been corrupted, you're going to realize, you're going to start to see not only your heart, your actions, you're going to start to see the hearts of other people. And I'm telling you, it's just different perspectives. Me personally, this is where I start to realize like how, even again, from my experiences, how certain relationships I just naturally outgrew because I chose to water myself. I chose to do the inner work. I chose to face things within myself. So when you outgrow something, it's just the fact of that I'm telling you that my fruit is not going to be as accessible as someone else. You ever heard that saying, that low growing fruit? Meaning that's why so many people allow people to have access to them. They're low growing fruit. And then having access to them all the time, they never have nothing left over for themselves. Or how else could I say this analogy? When you don't have to prove or perform to the world, because in taking back your personal power, you will realize how much you have been trying to perform. Because persona is mask in Latin. So you realize like these masks that you've had to put on to look a certain way on social media. That's why so many things is performance on social media, because truly a lot of people don't have an inner identity. They have to keep that performance up. That's why you see a lot of women and men, especially I see collectively with women again, that will come more into depth of their personal power. They're going to realize how much they're just performing for social media, for likes, for clicks, for all this other shit, clickbait, for a sense of attention. Because again, they're probably whatever they went through in childhood and how they parade, whether it's their bodies, themselves and so forth. Again, to each their own, what they want to do, that's them. But I'm telling you, the depths of in rising in divine femininity and masculinity being displayed has a lot to do with it not having to prove itself. I don't have to prove my fruit to be righteous. I don't have to prove or perform my fruit to be something of substance. I don't have to show you that it's sweet. If you got to do that, if you got to perform, I already know the shit rotten. I already know that there's nothing, and what I mean by rotten, that means like not just only on the inside. That's all you have. Is it looks a certain way on the outside, but your fruit, and when I look at your roots, when I look at the depths of you, and when I see, okay, yeah, this tree is dressed up a certain way, it looks a certain way, but it's dead on the inside. It's empty on the inside. It has no depths. And what I mean by that, the importance of the feminine archetype and the emotional depths of people, the intelligence aspect of them, beyond what they portray on the surface, beyond how beautiful their smile is, what they look like and all like that. That shit means nothing to someone who knows and has awareness of, you know, being in depth with themselves and reaching themselves much more deeper. You'll realize, like, you know, in their performance, it really reveals their roots, or it really reveals the unhealed or unresolved things within them. And that's how deep it is when it comes to, again, connections and relationships. You start to recognize, damn, this was an attachment. Fuck. It ain't even their fault. You start to realize, like, I have something within me that, let's say if it is something unresolved within you, then sometimes you can have this attachment that you never let go of inwardly, and that's keeping you from progressing. But false progression can look like someone portraying that they have it all together, that they're doing this and on the surface and so forth, but in reality, what they took to get there, you have no idea of. That's what makes their fruit rotten. That's what makes them, again, you know them behind closed doors type shit, or you know what they do, or even more so, in liberating yourself and freeing yourself, you start to realize taking back your personal power will have you going through, and I'm telling you from experience of meeting women who went through self-abuse, it will have you going through a shelter experience. It will have you going through, some may perceive it as financial loss, but only to prepare you for financial gain. You might go through a financial loss. You may go through an abrupt change or unexpected change, because that is showing you that the divine wants you through that divine intervention, wants you to find and to get to know you more, so that you can build upon something within you that's built upon integrity and authenticity, so that you can align with people who reflect that, who mirror that. And that's where a lot of people fear, because of familiarity. They fear that shit. They'll stay in something and not care to look for a way out. Or sometimes it's very challenging for a lot of people because they don't know where their next meal is gonna come. I had to laugh because somebody pulled in the snow and they slid almost across the what you call that, the parking thing. That was hilarious. But the parking bump. But anywho, it will have you, again, I've seen this personally with people who are trying to just remove themselves from family, the family dynamic. You can have a mother or certain people throw up certain things in your face to belittle you, to devalue you, to make it seem like you're not capable or going to be capable of. They'll use it's impossible once you realize it's impossible when you look at the word, but they'll project whatever it is, their insecurities, their fears, their subconscious fears, because they built this identity around this unhealthy attachment to you. And with that, what's familiar to them, of course they don't want you to escape it. Of course they don't want you to feel like you can outgrow them. Of course they don't want you to assume that you can build without them. And this shit is even more tougher, let's say, for people who have been in marriages, relationships with children. Sometimes that you will see, or personally, I'm telling you from just, again, personal experience, where I've seen people go through, even myself, to where you can come to a place where you can have to decide within yourself, because of, let's say, you grew up with not knowing yourself as much as you know now, to realize like you can outgrow things personally, and that's okay. Or you can express to that person that we're better off not just being friends, but some people may say co-parenting, I like to say guardian, or just the fact of you part ways, but you just need to deal with you more. You just need to be with you a little bit more than living in the same household, or and I'm not trying to be no relationship counselor. I'm just bringing y'all into awareness of it's okay to where you start to recognize learned behavior patterns of people pleasing, to where you're doing, people pleasing to overextend, or to realize because of the family dynamic you want to stay in things, or because of how much you don't realize you've suffered in it, or how much you realize like you just need to show up for yourself more. You need to hold space for you more. You start to emphasize for yourself more, and then you realize like sometimes in that a person's behavior can become overwhelming, or can come too much to where you get tired and you're looking for a way out. And this isn't something that's prioritized again amongst men, because we naturally see women because of society support this so much so, but they support it in a way of automatically excluding the man needing support, because they don't emphasize for the man first. They emphasize for the children and the mother. They don't emphasize for men who are trying to build outside of that, knowing that he has to support his children. He's left out there in the cold. No one comes along and emphasizes for the man that was once a little boy who has to rebuild his life. Who don't, and listen, y'all jump to finances. No. People quick because of the fucking belief system say, well, he's a man. He has to go out there and work. He has to go out. Bro, fuck all that. Where's the empathy for that man having to recreate and rebuild his own inner identity around the fact of him having to love himself, whole capacity, for the fact of accepting and having to grieve and having to go through the emotions of even not being around his children as much as he wants to be? Mothers just don't go through that shit. I say the shit y'all afraid to say. I speak up for the men collectively. Y'all don't know that. Y'all don't know the backstory to everything. Y'all don't know the backstory to how the fact of a lot of women don't know they have father wounds. A lot of women that know that they're not emotionally, they don't know how to, they don't really, again, societally, it's not all, but most women, depending on who they are, grow up in environments where, again, they could have had a father who was emotionally available, so they don't really know. A lot of women don't know how to treat a man because they don't know how to treat themselves. Once you exclude religion and all like this, some of those people, their first husband is a religious character. They'll emphasize more with Jesus or with somebody else, whatever religion. They know how to emphasize and connect more with him. Someone they don't even deal with on a personal basis or every day. They'll emphasize with this person, this make-believe or this imaginative fucking character more than their own personal spouse or the father of their children. They'll thank God or Jesus that they got out of something before they give gratitude to the fact of, you know, what did this teach me? I know this gonna put motherfucking panties in the butt. They're gonna be over. It is what it is. This is my perspective. This is my truth. This is my perspective. This is shit I've seen personally. I it never made sense to me how so many women could be in so much of a deep psychosis or so, you know, and so much and not see the father wound behind the fact of how y'all could go to somebody else that you don't even see and go speak. How is that not having like an imaginative friend? It's like a child believing in, you know, someone they see. And so, how? And then it's the funny part about it. You go take it to somebody that don't even look like you. That's crazy. You go talk and go glorify and praise an image or that to a man that don't even look like you. I mean, to me, sometimes it would make sense if the man looked like you. That automatically excludes and put his emotions and automatically, it's like you psychologically already having more empathy for a man who don't look like you because you go into spaces where you have been so against yourself. I'm breaking generational curses and cycles when I say this shit. The psychological warfare around how a lot of some women can go in spaces and devalue themselves, allow themselves to be devalued and belittled to a man who don't even emphasize with their women, with himself, or emphasize with their women, because you can look at the constructs and the shit that they built and you even expect them to have it for you, and you on bending knees, and then you playing small, you dimming your light. It makes sense why now you don't even emphasize for yourself or even the men that you have been in relationships with, let alone with your sons. So you can care less of what road and what route that he takes. So it's expected. I got to this place, I don't even fucking expect empathy from women. That's just my harsh truth. I didn't say it's not possible. I didn't say there aren't women that are capable. But when I look at this society, bro, I got that revelation last night. I said, fuck, I can't even expect them to have to even know what it is to put themselves. Because for so long, they have been putting themselves in they have so long before they put themselves in my shoes as a darker man, as a man, they'll put their self in the shoes of a religious figure or somebody else, or even a man that don't even look like them. They'll emphasize or sympathize for them first because of what they can provide materialistically. Because empathy comes from a spiritual and emotional space. So now look at this fucking shit that's going on, I don't expect y'all to emphasize this when I tell my story and shit like this, because guess what? You don't fucking care about yourselves. You don't love yourself. Shit that's going on, bro. This shit is a fucking joke. It's such a distraction. I sat there, and like I said, you can have people, you don't even know whether they're true monks. You don't even know who they are. But to see people immediately rush into something without even like emphasis, it shows how fucking easily influenced people are. I was sitting there, like I said, this is my perspective. When I saw, you know, like I said, it's not to say who are true this or not. But I noticed even seeing people walk and all this other stuff and see people show up, bro, you won't even show up for fucking men when these men are desperately crying out for empathy when it comes to their mental health, for their well-being, for financial support. You'll go out there and give people food, bro. You'll go people you never met, but then you got a man out here that's crying out for help, that's probably battling with, you know, suicidal thoughts, that's probably battling with shit that's so much more deeper. Bro, society, y'all don't, this shit right, that's why I cannot take none of this shit serious, bro. You have sons out there. You have men out there, and y'all show up for men who have never shown them faces, who have never done anything for you personally. And it shows how people just show up in the hundreds and thousands or whatever and give unto people who they've never had interactions or personal connections and so forth. While you will have men out here, again, how the world have y'all believe you will support men you don't know nothing a fucking about, bro. You will give all these, like, I can't, whoa. This shit wild to me, bro. That's why I don't even get into the hyper distracted by this. I just sit back and observe, like, whoa. And this is stuff I bring to y'all attention. Y'all put yourself in Jesus' shoes, and I'm telling, like, from growing up, seeing women, they'll escape through religion before they emphasize with their own husband. Before they emphasize with themselves first, personally. That's why I love the fact of in what I'm doing, I'm taking back my personal power from what I saw and experienced growing up. Like I said, this ain't an attack on people and their belief system. I'm bringing awareness and shatter fucking illusions, and of course that's gonna be uncomfortable. Of course that's gonna be uncomfortable. Because I emphasize for the men who are going through things. The little boy, the little man within them who, as soon as they try to address what they're going through, you have, and I'm telling you from personal experience, you have women who deflect, and I see why they deflect. Because they don't know how to emphasize. They don't know how, they never had people emphasize with them. And that's how I've seen personally in relationships where that's why certain moments where it's calling you to taking back your personal power will have you going through a seclusion or isolating yourself to get to know you better, to really see human behavior, to really see why the fact of it's a form of protecting yourself. I'm not saying you have to stay in something. It's the fact of there are some people here, their purpose, their destiny is to learn more about themselves, to inspire other people, to shed light, to expose what is hidden. You know what I'm saying? Because again, I've dealt with things personally to realize like why the divine was saying, I'm creating distance for you and this person. I'm trying to show you why that it's so important for you to get to know you. Because you were so blinded by basically this connection, I'm telling you, was showing you that it was karmic for a reason. It was unhealthy for you to get to know you better, so that you can build upon and create structures, whatever it is, so you can structure your life in a more harmonious and healthy way. So like I said, I've been in connections, or what I thought was a connection, and realizing that through the unhealthy attachment, because that's what a mother wound would expose, a father wound, or just unresolved things will expose. It will show you the attachment that you have, that you're not willing to let go, that you cause your own suffering through that emotional attachment. So of course, how it can be revealed is that, personally, for me, it'll show, or have shown, like when I was dealt with healing through sexual abuse, or hypersexualizing a lot of things with women. At that time, I used that, having sex, as a tool, which is a form of an unhealthy attachment, because I didn't care to build on anything else but that. And then those relationships dynamics was only leading down a path of self-destruction, self-sabotage, because if I felt like, let's say a woman say, I didn't want to do this anymore, then immediately, if a man is not healed and not in tune, he will prey on the next victim. And women do it, that's why I can see why a lot of women are going to come to that realization, how enabling men to have predatory behavior, enabling women too, to prey on the woundings, because we grew up in society like that. I can honestly see why certain women have belief systems around why they don't trust men. Just as well as y'all have that, it's men as well, why we don't feel we can trust you all. And this is where the healing is happening. And it's happening within first. We assume that it gotta happen. I mean, it happens within first. Also, it happens in the dynamics, like the relationships, the partnerships reveal the fact of where the unresolved trauma or the friction begins, or the disagreements and all that other stuff. Like, it reflects self. It truly does. And if you pay attention enough, like, you'll start to, like, it'll become more easier, it'll become more clearer, it'll become more as you start to learn yourself deeper, it becomes more clearer on the fact of how your role becomes more clearer. And in taking back your personal power, you start to prioritizing yourself being main character. And then you no longer are scapegoated. Because being scapegoated, you really are realizing that you're extra in someone else's way of trying to be a main character, them dominating or wanting to dominate the relationship, with whether their finances, or with them providing you with whatever it is. And again, if it's not coming from a healthy place, or whatever's unresolved in them, again, will eventually peak. It always will. And again, it just brings awareness to what either you have allowed or what you need to work on personally. And sometimes it just revealed that what that person needs to work on. And that's what, again, will allow someone you to realize, like, to get out of the way of their karma, the lessons that they need to learn. It's not a horrible thing. Karma is to, they need to learn this. Let me remove myself. Now, how could I set myself up? What can I do? And that's when you begin to work towards that, or create that reality, or start to build on that. And from experience, personal experience, I've always done this. I've done this personally because, let's say, using my personal experiences, or using from me creating my arts and staying consistent and persistent, in reconnecting with people, things could, seem like they can go smoothly. Things can seem like they're great. And what will eventually be revealed is still what is unresolved in that individual. And how that can look, I don't want to use that oversaturated word narcissism, but how it can look is the fact of, how could I use my experience of, it's like the person will, the individual will make it seem like everything is so great during the first couple of months, years, and so forth, you know. But then you start to realize, like, sometimes that's where reconnecting, and sometimes you realize it's reattachment or reconciliation could show you that the person never, in wanting to repair or reconcile, you start to realize, like, in you learning yourself deeper, you as you become more the observer, or like learn more about yourself from doing the inner work, you start to recognize, like, wow, this person never, in their wanting to reconcile or wanting to repair things, they never truly met themselves as deeper as you have, or they never, you know. And it's not about being perfect, it's just about the balance. They never really got to know themselves deeper. And sometimes what you're asking for, what you wanting in a connection could, you know, what you prioritize in your standards and your values, it can look completely different. And that's okay. And that's why I feel like a lot of people have overstayed, and I've learned this through experience, overstayed your welcome, is because you start to realize, like, what you value may not be something that person, you know, values. Or this comes with growing up and not knowing, people guiding us, or being misguided because of not having emotionally available parents, or dealing with some type of childhood traumas and so forth. It will lead you in choosing a partner that's not sufficient for you in the long term, or building on that. And that's okay, because that's the thing about lessons of learning, that sometimes you have to connect with someone. Sometimes, you know, some of us went through shit where things were led with more of a lust or desire for that person, or the idea, loving the idea of that person, popularity. I'm giving y'all real shit because it happens all the time. That's why some of those celebrity connections and so forth, bro, a lot of that stuff is such a distraction to where it'll have you, you know, mesmerized or glamorizing the surface aspect of it, but you don't know what they go through personally. You don't know what's unresolved in those people. You know, here you are idolizing or wanting, you know, something like that. You will be glamorizing something like that because of how they look or what they have. And y'all don't realize all of that shit is a form of, like, casting an illusion or fantasy. All that shit is fantasy. And then now here you are wanting to dress. This shows you the inability of how people with emotional intelligence have to show you, like, when I see people like that, like I said, I'm not saying that you cannot be admire what people do, but when it comes to this oddly weird obsession, I'm starting to realize that shows me, from my perspective, that this person didn't receive something in their childhood. Some of them really didn't know, or they don't have a sense of identity, so they have to look for it in someone else. That's where a lot of trending becomes. You see a lot of trends and shit like that. It's because, you know, people don't know how to really be themselves. That shows you the feminine archetype. That shows you, that comes from the fact of, if you look at a lot of their whatever they grew up in, you know. And I went through this shit personally with people in connection, where dealing with I've had this confidence, or, you know, or restoring my self-esteem, because when you look at the root chakra, it talks about surety, being sure of self. The opposite of that, you know, when it's not healed or resolved, is unsurety, anxiety, constipation, things dealing with the lower nature. So a lot of those things reflect the fact of having a mother that probably, especially if it's emotionally, who wasn't sure of herself. So that will lead her not to be sure of the men that she chooses. She just goes with the flow of things. And so that right there can also look like the fact of, I don't know why I heard in my head like I can hear women say, "Oh my God, he calling me out," or "Why you know?" And listen, this is to expose the fact of ourselves to build on things that are more structured and healthy. It's only guiding you to realize, like, you know what? I didn't know how to choose a partner, but I had to go through connecting with this person and that person, having children with this person, to realize, like, this shit was showing me to choose myself. So in choosing myself and to love myself and to honor that, now I know how to choose someone who reflects those same core values that I value. That's it. And if they have an issue with that, that's on them. And if they want to act and act a donkey and do whatever it is, that's where the emotional maturity comes in and emotional intelligence comes in. You realize, like, oh, you just showing me this is you all along. Or you just showing me this is exactly why I need to move on. This is exactly why I need to move forward. That's it. Because in that, you start to realize your life consists of more fun. Because people start to realize, like, again, going back to the trending thing, this is how I see how people who don't have, let's say, like, matter of fact, I'll use an example how I met a lady in the thrift store the other day. And it was so funny because I was up there and I like to get stuff, you know, that, again, even though you might see different replicas of certain things, I still like to get stuff that people don't typically wear. Or even when I wear it, no one can be like me with it. But I like to go and stuff, and then, you know, this lady was looking for what do you call those things? What's that this trend where these young boys are wearing that sweater that zips up? I forgot what it's called. But anywho, you know, I overheard the conversation, and then I was like, oh, you know, I saw something up here. But my immediate response was, you know, I was like, I already knew. I was like, oh, this trend thing. I didn't mind supporting the lady because she said, you know, it's for her son. But I also expressed to her, like, I was like, this is why, you know, like, after finding something for her, you know, I don't mind supporting people through what they do. Like I said, I'm not going to judge your belief system. If I come off like that, I apologize because it's not my intention. I'm just blunt and honest with a lot of things. But I was just seeing the fact of, like, oh my gosh, these little boys, you know, I said, this must be this trend thing. She was like, yeah, yada. And it just reveals to me how, again, most of society, the masses who don't know how to be in tune, who don't know the depths of having an inner identity first, which literally just mirror backs the maternal and matriarchal systems that has enabled young men and young women to not to know how to rely on their emotions first, or to honor it, because that leads them to structuring their lives on being self-sufficient, on structuring them lives to be balanced, and not how to be like other people. Because feminine archetype, the feminine energy, doesn't have an identity. It's not a trend. It doesn't care to feel when it's stable. It's sure of itself. So that means that sure of itself, meaning that I can show up as myself. I can wear what I want. I can be what I am. And so forth. And whoever has an issue with that, I mean, there's nothing you really can do about that. So that's why even the feminine archetype can show up whether people want to classify as gender, whether people want to do certain things or not. Listen, I see it as a form of self-expression. It's not harming me. It becomes problematic when people are trying to force people to, because of their belief system, because of their personal religious belief and so forth, how they try to convict and they want to control, they want to manipulate. And typically some of them are the same ones, which is already going to be exposed, are the same ones who have an infatuation with them, who have an obsession with them. Y'all have oddly weird obsession with people's lives that are just living, who come here to be who they are. Why you have the odd obsession with men who live a life of, you know, dating same sex? Why you have an oddly obsession with that? Maybe you want to be like that. Same thing with any other people. Why do you have this obsession with that? Because the insecurities that they're confidently living in what they're living in, and you have an issue with that. It brings up your deep insecurities. This shit has been going on for generations, for eons, and all that. People have just hidden it well. People have just masked it well. That's it. Like I said, now it becomes problematic when certain people are trying to force it and push it on children. That's where it becomes an issue with me. When you're trying to deceive them and not allow them to come into their own awareness of how they're supposed to live. That's where it becomes problematic for fucking me as a guardian. That's what you ain't gonna do over here. That's where it becomes manipulative, and you know, the symbolism that they put in cartoons and all that other stuff. Again, this is where the uproar comes within me. This is where I start roaring as a lion, as a fucking bear, as a protective. You know, nah. And the only solution sometimes you'll not say nothing. Just remove yourself. And that's where you realize that find your tribe. Your tribe is seeking you. What you're seeking is seeking you. Be discerning with all people, no matter if they subscribe to gender or not. Be fucking discerning of all people, especially women and mothers and children. Be discerning. You do have people who subscribe to stuff who just want to prey on little children because they battling with something. Be very cautious. I'm gonna be honest with that. There are certain people I pick up on, I'm like, okay, nah. And that's what has happened to a lot of children and to people into adulthood. A lot of their lifestyles, you know, they haven't known how to heal from their sexual trauma. This is not all. This is people I know personally. And I realize they go down a lifestyle, again, hypersexualizing themselves, overextending themselves, getting to a place where, you know, where you have people go to where they live the life of, you know, same sex or whatever they're doing, and they change. And they want to revamp their life, reinvent their life, because again, they could have went down a path where that feminine or that wounded masculinity that they were displaying, they come to that self-realization it was rooted in something where, you know, trauma related. And as they heal through it, they want to change their life. Who the fuck are we to judge that? Who are we to judge that? Again, it becomes problematic when you try to force it on people, to try to make us accept, you know, the behaviors of people. That is not okay. That's not okay. Especially if it's bringing harm to other people that are innocent, to our children. Fuck no, it becomes problematic. Definitely does become problematic. Because they too are, as you start become more in tune with your inner child, you're going to realize how they are so innocent and can easily be corrupted. Because they're not learning what corrupted us, our hearts, our minds, our spirit, and so forth. In reversing that and clearing that, you start to recognize, like, hold up, man. Y'all motherfuckers have tried to do this shit, and you won't do it to our children. Not mine. Not the ones I'm supposed to be protecting and guarding. No, fuck no. Fuck you and that spirit, whatever attached to you, that low entity, low vibration entity, whatever it is. You go handle your vices over there, and before it become an issue. Cause this gonna be conflict resolution over here. That shit gonna backfire. Go play with your mama. Go play somewhere else. Go find somebody else to play with. Cause I play all day. I'm funny and all like that. Outside of that, I don't play when it comes to my inner child. Therefore, I don't play when it comes to the innocence of children. You little freakazoids and people who, you know, yeah, nah. And then this is where again, and taking back your personal fucking power. Yeah, I have an issue with a lot of y'all who sit there and try to protect people who are abusing children financially, mentally, you know, all across the board. And your karma, your day is coming. Rain don't miss nobody's house. Your day is coming. Your judgment is here. I'm your mirror. So yeah, I feel like that's all I needed to cover. It's a beautiful thing because I'm telling you, man, like, yeah. And taking back your personal power that starts inwardly, you no longer tolerate the bullshit. Oh, he's so mean. He's so no, because you see, this is where it becomes problematic. This is where he's so mean. You fucking right. I'm angry. I'm angry at the fact of how I was mistreated young. I'm angry at the fact of what I won't tolerate. Fuck yeah, I have righteous anger towards the fact of what I allow, what I won't no longer allow. So if that righteous anger is gonna come up, you right, because I ain't tolerating it. Think you gonna come around here and play and this thing? Oh, I don't know. If you feel intimidated, that's on you. Go check yourself. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that's why I stand in love. I stand in truth. I stand in integrity. And if that exposes the hand of even the people closest to me and so forth, so be it. Then I'll be removed or they'll be removed swiftly. Divine justice. So be it. Ashe, ashe. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.